Oh, what a day it has been. The week is over, and more importantly, the recap is about to be handed over to you guys so that you don't have to watch every single one of these games. So let me tell you, when I mean god damn, when some of my predictions went down the drain, some teams starting to come together while others have slowly started to break apart. The meta's up in the air, but let's jump right into it. Hey guys, if you want to support the channel, all you gotta do is hit that like and notification bell right underneath, like right now. Comment as much as you want, share this to all your friends if you possibly can, because right now I can maybe help out with my girlfriend's crippling skin addiction. I don't know why. 10,000 diamonds just ain't enough. If you want to help the channel out, all you gotta do, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and watch this video all the way to the end. So thank you so much for those who are supporting the content. Now let's jump back into the weekly recap. Let's start with day number 1. Team Hawk versus RSG MY was the very first match to kind of open things up for week 3. Looking at the games, Hawk came up with a snowball-oriented comp designed around Gary to make sure that he not only is able to kind of affect the side lanes, but more importantly, they also paired him up with the Brody to ensure that somebody was able to finish the kills. Overall, the comp looked kinda strange, only because RSG MY has done a lot of good pre-preparation, making sure that Iris did not get any impact EXP laners, banning out the Terizla, making sure that Paquito was out of the pool instantaneously, and worst of all, without the Angela, they didn't have any real means of abusing the early game that was centralized around Gary. What's worse is that the RSG draft was designed around Loliels, having 2 strong anchors to maintain their battle lines to ensure that nobody from the side of Team Hawk could really go deep inside the composition. In this case, the selection of the Fredrin as well as having the Grok, I'm not gonna lie, Storm had some good moments with the Nature's Barriers, isolating targets and stopping escape paths, more importantly, blocking off paths with the Nature's Barrier, really costed Team Hawk a lot of space and more importantly, a lot of resources just to get past, which is rather surprising to me because Hawk doesn't necessarily make this mistakes. But then if you look deeper in towards it, DemonKite is kinda allowed to do whatever he wants. Now that he knows his 4 other teammates are gonna be working together, he's allowed to kind of fill in the gaps whenever he pleases, getting in and out of the fights without having to communicate too much other than shouting at his team whenever they need to focus down on one target. And that's where we get to see DemonKite really shine. Without the burden of having to worry about every single aspect of the game, he's able to dive in deep and get out whenever he pleases, knowing that he has a fail-safe at the end of the day. Having insurance is always good to have. I don't know whether it be health or whether it be car insurance, it's good to have. You never know if things are gonna go wrong, and it feels like you are free of burden. And in this case for DemonKite, I think he was more than free from his burdens, and more importantly so, Izanami joining the team once more on the main lineup, making sure that people like Gary, for example, on this Fanny, wasn't able to get ahead. I mean, it's a snowball comp, to be fair. It is a snowball comp designed to go fast, but it needs that very first 1 or 2 kills, which was shut down at the 6th minute of the game, 42 seconds, where Izanami was able to defend. Again, if he did not get this Terrify, look at this clip, if he did not get this Terrify, Gary would have double killed them and this game would have been so much harder to handle. But that wasn't the only mistake that Hawk ended up making. Out of sheer desperation, and especially since Iris unable to kind of influence the map as much as he wants to, we see a couple desperation plays being made by Hawk. At the 8th minute of the game, 6 seconds, we see Iris overextending and in turn causes Panda to overheat and overextend at the same time. With so much devastation and more importantly so much of a lead given over to RSG MY, it was pretty simple for them to close out game number 1. And then we jump over to game number 2 where we almost basically see a repeat of game number 1. I think RSG MY at the very least has conditioned Hawk, but it doesn't mean that Hawk is completely not to be blamed for this. I feel like Team Hawk really have their own comfort picks, and especially when exploiting the EXP lane picks and taking away some high impact EXP laners from Iris specifically, it felt like Team Hawk couldn't really break the tempo. And worse yet, the draft got even worse than game number 2. Like, RSG MY conditioned them so well that in the second phase, instead of banning the Kufra and locking in the Lancelot all over again, they lock in Joy, but they also ban out the Franco. So with both Kaja and as well as Franco gone from the pool, there was no stopping Demon Kite. With his electrifying beats, he can jump wherever he feels like it, and I would imagine that Hawk felt comfortable only because they had the Claude and Novaria, two good performing heroes on both Panda and as well as Yura, both of which can actually disengage and make enough space to run away from Demon Kite on Joy. But it doesn't change the problem, right? It's similar to game number 1 with no means of lockdown, 2 anchors once again, and an entire draft centralized around Loliel's and his scaling. It's lucky enough that Hawk was able to limit Loliel's onto this Irithyll, knowing that they have a very set period of time to try to get ahead, but as soon as Loliel's gets his 3 items, they're in big trouble. Once he has 4th items, there's basically no means of playing the game unless Loliel's makes that mistake, and fortunately for RSG MY, he doesn't. My final thoughts on this game, I'd say that RSG outdrafted Team Hawk. I feel like Team Hawk has really cornered themselves with these comfort picks or these picks that give them the most impact in the game. They really have to start expanding their overall hero pool. And it's not to say that Iris played badly. I can say that he did play pretty poorly. He died at like level 1, and then afterwards he ended up on Glue. Not exactly the 2 best picks in the world with Lapoon as well as Glue, but that's besides the point. It feels that right now Hawk knows their own identity, but if it's centralized around one player, maybe you should consider looking at some of the other problems of the team. Maybe Yura needs to start feeling more comfortable on other mages, and more importantly, their support needs to be able to make plays by himself. Gary can try as hard as he wants, but without the added level of insurance, or at the very least, support to get his job done, I feel like Team Hawk is wasting a lot of potential in their overall lineup. The second match on Friday came with LTX versus Team Secret. Now, I have to admit, this is the most disappointed I've been in a very long time, with Team Secret finally getting the strongest main lineup that they could possibly put together in such a short period of time. Halfway through the league, we were expecting that Team Secret were going to be able to roll LTX after the poor performance that we saw from the Lunatix on day number 2. However, it doesn't change the fact that Team Secret's communication is not looking great. And let me just summarize the game for you to make it simpler to understand. In game number 1, we saw a goal-sided snowball composition coming out from the side of Team Secret, which is, again, centralized around the Bruno. Once Bruno is unlocked from this lane, they can do so much across the map to snowball their lead out of control. And it's fairly straightforward. I would have imagined that Team Secret were playing it well, and they did in the earlier stages of the game. And then we look over at LTX, where they themselves also had a siege composition, but I would say that they played it even better. How so? Number 1, they unlocked their Beatrix from their lane early, despite Bruno bullying them out for a good amount of time. 1 or 2 simple lane ganks coming in from ESHA, OHANA made all the difference. And once the snowball started for the side of Team Lunatix, they had no means for the side of Team Secret to actually stop it. Well, I would say stop it, but then you could see a lot of fundamental problems. I mean, kick things off at the 3rd minute of the game. Well, not even the 3rd minute, the 5th minute of the game, 42 seconds, where we do see LTX getting mid and top tier 1 turrets for essentially free. Bruno rotates around to defend the mid, but gets zoned off of the tier 1 on top side when he's trying to make it back top. So why was he moving in the first place? Why was there need of coverage when the rest of his team were slowly pushing up to kind of retake the space after losing the neutral objective? And worse yet, at the 3rd minute 41 second, we see LTX really start to shine. In particular, ESHA OHANA played a huge role in both of these games, playing around vision and getting a superb lane gank on towards Bruno, forcing him out of lane and unlocking Beatrix. To be honest, that was the game-winning play, because from then on, it felt like there was no way for LTX to lose unless they made a huge mistake of their own. Then we get to game number 2, where we see the problems really start to show. Even though Team Secret had a game-winning draft, like without a doubt, there are very clear goals in this composition. Instead of Bruno this time, well, we do see the Bruno come up again, but instead of the Beatrix, we see the Irithel pop up from the side of Team Lunatix. Now, with a very clear goal of breaking that gold lane, it should be straightforward for Team Secret. Unfortunately, on the opposite side of the map, Neo was getting absolutely shafted in both of these games, having to play Fredrin into this X-Board. Now, this matchup previously would have been so easy for X-Board. However, now the tides have kind of turned. X-Board does require to get an Ice Queen's Wand as well as an Immortality. The Ice Queen's Wand allows him to win the lane very easily unless you make a mistake, and the Immortality forces your opponents to waste way too many resources on just one guy. Kian, taking full advantage of the situation, continues to bully out Neo, and worse yet, the communications start to break down. Like, there were some very good dive opportunities. 3 minutes 50 seconds into the game, we see that there was a good angle for them to jump on in. But let's just hypothetically believe that in this particular case, Team Secret's MAXX did not want to go further, right? He didn't want to die. Fair enough. It's his decision at the end of the day. At least they called it off. But then it gets worse. 4th minute, 40 seconds into the game, ESHA makes another incredible vision play to lane gank Matt and crush him. And once he died, this lane, this goal lane that used to be so heavily in favor of Bruno suddenly turned in favor of Irithel, who could have enough of a lead to stall out the lane and maintain her HP so that Bruno could never set up for another dive opportunity throughout the game unless there were some outside factors making this lane even harder, whether it could be a dive, whether it could just be a bad trade. We didn't get to see that from the side of Team Secret, which was disappointing. Worst yet was the 8th minute of the game where we see the big tempo break from the side of LTX. Don't get me wrong, Team Secret had a solid idea, a solid plan, and better yet, a winning draft that was actually getting a good gold lead. All of that thrown away down into the drain when LTX was able to find this tempo break. Worst yet, the communications between the members, they're so disconnected. Like, everybody is kind of like everywhere and nobody wants to go in because nobody know what the call was supposed to be. So with Team Secret overall, I would say it's pretty disappointing to see them in this current state so deep into the MPL MY League. This is the 3rd week. We're at the halfway point. They need to kind of pull themselves together. My final thoughts on this game is going to be this. It's just overall, communication needs to be better amongst Team Secret members. I don't know what exactly the issue is. Could it be ego? Could nobody's voice be heard? Is nobody really making the final call at the end of the day? Or are they just hesitant because of the lack of trust? Whatever it is, I'm hoping that Team Secret is able to pull themselves out of the relegation zone because there's so much investment, and it feels a little sad for me personally because Matt and Max were two phenomenal players coming in from MPL ID, and I was happy that they came over to MY, but right now we don't even get to see the best of them, on top of the fact that AIM is now a free agent, used to be one of my favorite mid laners, now doesn't have a place to be. Neo consistently getting shafted in the draft and having to take bad matchups on purpose, but his team doesn't seem to be doing anything anyway, so what's the point? I do hope that Team Secret gets better in the upcoming weeks, but it's looking a little rough. Hey, thanks for watching the video, guys. Now, the video was extra long because there's so much to actually cover this week, so we've split it up into a multiple based on each of the days. So you can go check out the next one right over here. This right here.